You did everything right. You cleared the bed, turned the soil, planted your seeds in neat rows, and watered every morning before work. 2 weeks later, the garden looked exactly like you imagined. Green shoots pushing up through clean, dark soil. You felt it. That quiet pride of someone who actually followed through. Then you missed one weekend. You come back out Monday morning, and it looks like the weeds never left. Crabgrass between every row. Bindweed wrapping itself around your tomato stems. Purslane carpeting every inch of bare soil you worked so hard to clear. Your vegetables are still there, but they're losing. And here's the thing. It's not because you're a bad gardener. It's because bare soil is an open invitation. The moment you leave empty ground between your plants, weeds accept that invitations before you even walk back inside. That was me for 7 straight years. Every spring I'd clear the beds, plant my vegetables in perfect rows with perfect spacing, exactly like every gardening article told me to. And every summer I spent more time on my knees, pulling weeds, than I ever spent actually harvesting anything. I bought landscape fabric. I laid cardboard. I tried every mulch at the hardware store. The weeds always came back. Always. I kept thinking I was doing something wrong. What I was actually missing was the plants themselves. But here's what no one told me, and it genuinely changed the way I garden. Weeds don't take over because they're strong. They take over because your soil has empty space. Fill that space with the right vegetables. Plants with wide leaves, sprawling vines, and dense canopies that block sunlight from reaching the soil. And the weeds have nowhere to go. No light, no germination. No germination, no problem. You don't need more mulch. You need the right plants doing the mulching for you. This one is for the gardeners who are exhausted. The ones who started growing food because it was supposed to be rewarding, not because they wanted a second full-time job on their knees in July. For busy people, frustrated people, people who want real food from their own yard without surrendering their entire weekend to weed patrol every single week. Today, I'm giving you exactly 10 vegetables that solve the weed problem from the inside out. Each one is a food crop first and a weed suppressor second. You get the harvest and the clean bed at the same time. If you haven't subscribed to Easy Harvest Gardens yet, do it right now. Every week on this channel, we give you practical food gardening information that actually changes what happens in your yard, not just what you know. This is that kind of video. And stay through to number 7. It's a vegetable most American gardeners have never grown. It spreads so aggressively that farmers used it as a living ground cover before commercial herbicides existed. And when you see what it looks like in a raised bed in August, you're going to wonder why nobody told you about it sooner. We'll get there. Let's start. Vegetable 1. Sweet potato. Picture this. It's the middle of August. Every gardener on your street is out there in the heat weeds for the 3rd time this month. You walk past your sweet potato bed and there isn't a single weed visible. Not one. Just a dense, lush, trailing carpet of heart-shaped leaves covering every inch of soil from one end of the bed to the other. That's not an accident. That's how sweet potato grows. But here's what most American gardeners don't know about this plant. Sweet potato belongs to the morning glory family, Convolvulaceae, and it grows the way morning glory grows, by covering everything. The vines extend 4 to 6 feet in every direction from a single slip. Every inch of vine puts out leaves. Every leaf, sunlight. Sunlight is what weed seeds need to germinate. No sunlight, no weeds. The plant is running active suppression all season long. But here's what makes it truly special for people like us. Once those vines close the canopy, usually within 4 to 6 weeks of planting, your weeding in that bed is essentially finished for the season. And in late October, you dig up the soil and pull out sweet potatoes that have been quietly sizing up beneath that living mulch all summer. Now, here's what goes against most gardeners' instincts. Don't fight the vines when they spread outside the bed. Every vine you cut is square footage of weed suppression you're removing. Redirect them gently if needed. Never cut the tips in midsummer. Zones 8 to 11 as a true perennial. Grown as an annual in zones 3 to 7. Full sun. loose, well-drained sandy or loamy soil. Vines trail 4 to 6 feet. Harvest 90 to 120 days after planting. Best varieties: Beauregard for high yield, Covington for sweet flavor, Georgia Jet for shorter northern seasons. One plant, one season, 0 weeds, and a harvest that stores through February. Vegetable 2. Zucchini. Someone plants 1 zucchini in late May. By the 4th of July, the leaves are the size of dinner plates. By the end of July, the plant has claimed 3 feet of garden real estate in every direction, and there is not a single weed underneath it. Not because someone pulled them, because there is no light reaching the soil at all. A single mature zucchini plant covers 12 to 16 square feet, with leaves so large and dense that the ground underneath stays dark all day. And here's what most gardeners don't think about: that canopy also lowers soil temperature, keeps moisture in, and creates a biological environment that's hostile to weed germination. The suppression is layered, not just physical. But here's what makes it truly special for people like us. You get suppression and one of the most productive vegetables in the garden at the same time. A single healthy zucchini in full production gives you 3 to 5 fruits per week through the height of summer. You're not sacrificing yield for weed control. You're getting both. Now here's what goes against most gardeners' instincts. Plant zucchini closer to your other beds than you think you should. Let the leaves do double duty, suppressing weeds in 2 spaces at once. The canopy will reach zones 3 to 10. Full sun. Rich, well-amended soil. Direct sow after last frost or transplant at 2 to 3 weeks old. Space plants 3 feet apart. Harvest begins 50 to 65 days from seed. Best varieties: Black Beauty for production, Costata Romanesco for flavor, Patio Star for containers. Plant 2 zucchini. Harvest all summer. Pull 0 weeds underneath them. Vegetable 3. Winter squash. If zucchini is the aggressive neighbor, winter squash is the one that quietly takes over the entire block while you weren't watching. Butternut, Hubbard, Delicata, spaghetti squash. Every one of them sends out vines that reach 8 to 12 feet from the plant's center. Each vine is lined with large lobed leaves that create a continuous canopy across every inch of soil they cover. A single butternut plant can suppress weeds across 40 to 60 square feet, the footprint of a small bedroom. The key is where you plant it. Most people put winter squash in the middle of a bed and fight the vines all summer. The right move is the opposite. Plant it at the edge of your garden and aim the vines outward, into pathways, over bare beds, along the fence line. You're not containing the spread, you're directing it. The plant does the work. You decide where. But here's what makes it truly special for people like us. Winter squash matures in September and October. The suppression runs through the hottest, weediest months of the year, and at the end of it you pull the fruit off the vine and store it in a cool basement where it keeps for 3 to 6 months. You suppress weeds all summer and eat from that same plant through Thanksgiving. Now here's what goes against most gardeners' instincts. Don't remove the vines after harvest. Leave them until hard frost kills them. Then cut at the base and lay the dead vine material flat as a natural mulch going into winter. Zones 3 to 10. Full sun. Well-drained fertile soil. Direct sow after last frost. Vines reach 8 to 12 feet. Days to harvest: 80 to 110 depending on variety. Best weed-suppressing varieties: Waltham butternut, Blue Hubbard, Delicata. 1 plant. 1 season of clean pathways. 6 months of food. Vegetable 4. Watermelon. Most American gardeners think of watermelon as a fruit that takes up too much space. That's exactly why it belongs on this list. A single watermelon plant sends out vines in every direction that can reach 10 to 12 feet from the center. The leaves are deeply lobed and large enough that once the vines start running in earnest, usually 4 to 5 weeks after transplanting, the ground underneath disappears entirely. In July and August, a watermelon patch in full growth looks like a solid green carpet with nothing visible underneath it. No soil, no weeds, nothing. But here's what most American gardeners don't know about watermelon and heat. Watermelon is one of the few vegetables that actually accelerates its growth in extreme summer heat rather than slowing down. The hotter July gets, the faster those vines run. That means the weed suppression intensifies during the exact weeks when weed pressure is highest. The plant's peak growth season and the weed's season are perfectly aligned. But here's what makes it truly special for people like us. You're not planting a cover crop that you have to remove and discard. You're planting a crop that covers the ground and then rewards you with one of the most satisfying harvests of the entire summer. The vines do the suppression work. The fruit does the rest. Now here's what goes against most gardeners' instincts. Don't cut back the vines to keep things tidy. Every vine you remove is suppression coverage you're giving back to the weeds. Let them run. Tuck them back into the bed if they cross a path, but never remove actively growing vine tips in midsummer. Watermelon originated in the Kalahari Desert of Africa and has been cultivated for at least 5,000 years. Ancient Egyptian tomb paintings dating to 2000 BC depict watermelon harvests. Its desert origins are why it handles heat and drought better than most vegetables in the American summer garden, and why it outcompetes everything around it once the temperature climbs. Zones 3 to 11 as an annual. Full sun. Sandy, well-drained soil. Transplant after last frost when soil hits 70 degrees. Vines trail 10 to 12 feet. Harvest 70 to 90 days from transplant. Best varieties. Sugar Baby for small gardens. Crimson Sweet for flavor and yield. Jubilee for large production. Let the vines run. Keep the weeds out. Pick the fruit in August. That's the whole deal. Vegetable 5. Cucumber. Cucumber does something specific that most gardeners miss entirely. When trained horizontally along the ground instead of up a trellis, a single cucumber plant covers 4 to 8 square feet of soil with a dense mat of 3-lobed leaves and trailing vines that weeds cannot penetrate. Most American gardeners trellis their cucumbers and lose the ground-level suppression entirely. That's not wrong. Trellising improves air circulation and fruit quality. But if you have a wide-open bed with a weed problem, let 1 or 2 cucumber plants trail freely and watch what happens underneath them. But here's what most American gardeners don't know. Cucumber leaves lower the soil temperature beneath them by as much as 10 degrees Fahrenheit on a hot summer day through shading and transpiration. Cooler soil holds moisture longer, and moisture-retentive soil supports the beneficial microorganisms that actively compete with weed seeds at the germination stage. The plant is improving your soil's biology while it covers it. But here's what makes it truly special for people like us. Cucumbers are among the fastest producing vegetables in the summer garden. 50 to 70 days from transplant to first harvest. Succession plant every 3 weeks, and the canopy and the harvest both run continuously from June through September. Now here's what goes against most gardeners' instincts. Water at the base, never overhead. Cucumber leaves are susceptible to powdery mildew when wet. A soaker hose at the base keeps the canopy dry all season. Gardeners who water overhead fight mildew every summer. Gardeners who water at the base rarely see it. Zones 4 to 12. Full sun, rich, consistently moist, well-drained soil. Transplant after last frost or direct sow at 70 degrees soil temp. Vines trail 3 to 8 feet. Harvest 50 to 70 days from transplant. Best varieties. Marketmore 76 for reliability, Straight 8 for flavor, Space Master for containers. 50 days from transplant, a cucumber is covering your bare soil and putting food on your counter at the same time. Vegetable 6, Nasturtium. Every part of this plant is edible. The leaves taste like peppery arugula. The flowers go directly into salads. The seed pods are pickled and used exactly like capers, and the plant itself spreads along the ground in dense trailing mounds that smother every weed underneath. Nasturtium is not a decoration that happens to suppress weeds. It's a food crop that most American gardeners are treating as decoration, while the weed problem in the adjacent bed goes unsolved. But here's what most American gardeners don't know about nasturtium and pest management. It's a documented trap crop for aphids. Aphids prefer nasturtium over almost any vegetable in the garden. Plant it as a border around your food beds, and aphids colonize the nasturtium, largely leaving your tomatoes, beans, and squash alone. Weed suppression, food production, and built-in pest management from the same plant at the same time. But here's what makes it truly special for people like us. It asks for almost nothing. Poor soil, minimal water, no fertilizer. Too much fertility actually makes nasturtium produce more leaves and fewer flowers and seeds, the opposite of what you want. It thrives on neglect in a way that almost no other food crop does. Now here's what goes against most gardeners' instincts. Plant it in your worst soil. The rocky corner, the compacted edge by the fence, the strip alongside the driveway that never gets attention. That is exactly where nasturtium will thrive, cover the ground, and produce the most flowers for your kitchen. Nasturtium was used medicinally by the Incas of South America before Spanish explorers brought it to Europe in the 1500s. By the 1600s, it was being grown across Europe as food and as a source of vitamin C. The leaves are genuinely high in it. It crossed back into North America with European settlers and has been in American kitchen gardens continuously since the colonial period. Zones 9 to 11 as a perennial. Annual in zones 3 to 8, full sun to part shade. Poor to average well-drained soil. Direct sow after last frost. Trails 12 to 18 inches. Best varieties. Jewel mix for compact spreading. Alaska for variegated leaves. Empress of India for deep red flowers. Weed suppressor, aphid trap, salad green, edible flower, and caper substitute. 5 functions. 0 effort. 1 plant. Vegetables 7. Malabar spinach, here it is. The one I told you about at the start. Most American gardeners have never grown it. It doesn't look like spinach. It doesn't grow like spinach. It's a fast-growing tropical vine in the family Basiliaceae, completely unrelated to true spinach. And in the right conditions, it grows so aggressively that farmers across Southeast Asia and West Africa have used it as a living ground cover for generations, specifically because nothing grows through it. In a raised bed in August, Malabar spinach looks almost surreal. Deep green, glossy, thick-leaved vines, climbing whatever you give them, and trailing heavily along the ground, creating a layered mass of vegetation completely impenetrable to light at soil level. Weeds cannot germinate underneath it. The ones already there, when you planted, it get progressively shaded out over the course of the summer. But here's what most American gardeners don't know. Malabar spinach is one of the only leafy greens that thrives and produces better in extreme summer heat. True spinach bolts in June and is done. Malabar hits its stride in July and August, exactly when every other leafy green has given up. The leaves are thick and used in soups, stir-fries, and curries across South and Southeast Asian cooking traditions. But here's what makes it truly special for people like us. It produces edible leaves continuously from midsummer through the first hard frost. And the more you harvest the top growth, the more side shoots the plant produces. Harvesting makes it fuller and denser. More picking, more coverage, more suppression. Everything works together. Now here's what goes against most gardeners' instincts. Give it something to climb even if you want it to trail. A bamboo stake in the center of the bed gives the vines a vertical option, and the horizontal trailing coverage at ground level actually increases because the plant produces more total mass. Vertical plus horizontal. Full coverage. Malabar spinach has been documented in culinary and medicinal use across India, Southeast Asia, and West Africa for over 2,000 years. It came to the United States through both the African diaspora and Asian immigrant communities. It is now beginning to appear at American farmers' markets as awareness of its heat tolerance and productivity grows. But most home gardeners still haven't found it. Zones 9 to 11 as a perennial. Annual in zones 3 to 8, full sun. Well-drained average soil. Start indoors 6 to 8 weeks before last frost or direct sows when soil hits 65 degrees. Vines reach 10 feet on a trellis. Harvest begins 70 days from seed. Varieties. Red Malabar for ornamental red stems. Green Malabar for maximum productivity. A leafy green that produces all summer in the heat, covers every inch of bare soil, and was used as a farm-scale seed suppressor before commercial herbicides existed. That's the plant I told you about. Vegetable 8. Pumpkin. Everything that applies to winter squash applies to pumpkin. But pumpkin has one specific trait that earns it a separate entry: leaf size. A mature pumpkin leaf on a main vine can reach 12 to 18 inches across. When those leaves overlap along a vine running 8 to 10 feet from the plant's center, the ground underneath is in complete darkness, even at midday. Not dappled shade, darkness. That is the condition under which weed seeds cannot germinate regardless of moisture or soil temperature. The best strategy: plant pumpkin at the edge of a problem area, not in a dedicated bed. The worst weed patch in your yard, the strip alongside the house, the far corner that gets ignored every summer. Give that ground to a pumpkin plant in late May and check back in August. The vine will have covered it entirely. The weeds underneath will be dead or dying from lack of light, and somewhere in that mass of leaves there will be pumpkins sizing up quietly on their own. But here's what makes it truly special for people like us. Pumpkins store longer than almost any other garden vegetable. A properly cured pumpkin in a cool, dry room keeps for 3 to 6 months. You suppress weeds all summer and eat from that same plant through Thanksgiving and into December. Now here's what goes against most gardeners' instincts. Cure your pumpkins before you bring them inside. After harvest, leave them in full sun for 10 to 14 days. If the skin hardens, the stem dries and seals, and storage life triples compared to bringing them in immediately. Most people skip this step and wonder why their pumpkins rot in October. Zones 3 to 9. Full sun. Rich, well-drained, deeply amended soil. Direct sow after last frost or transplant at 2 weeks. Vines trail 8 to 12 feet. Harvest 90 to 120 days from seed. Best varieties: Sugar Pie for eating, Jarrahdale for storage and flavor, Atlantic Giant if you want to stop traffic in September. Plant one pumpkin in your worst weed patch. By October, the weeds are gone and the food is ready. Vegetable 9. Sweet corn with beans and squash. 3 sisters. This one isn't just a vegetable, it's a system. Corn, beans, and squash planted together. Indigenous nations across North America refined this combination over thousands of years, and it remains the most space-efficient, soil-building, weed-suppressing food production system a home gardener can plant today. Here's exactly how the weed suppression works. The corn grows tall and provides vertical structure. The beans climb the corn, fixing nitrogen into the soil as they go. The squash trails along the ground with enormous leaves, covering every inch of bare soil between the corn hills. Nothing gets through. No light, no competing plants of any kind. 3 crops from the same square footage, with the ground completely covered all season. But here's what most American gardeners don't know. Timing is everything. Plant corn first and let it reach 6 inches before planting beans at the base of each stalk. Plant squash 1 week after beans. If you plant all 3 at once, the squash suppresses the corn and beans before they can establish. The sequence is the technique. But here's what makes it truly special for people like us. The beans feed the soil for the corn and squash. The corn supports the beans. The squash protects the ground for all 3. No fertilizer, no herbicide, no tiller. The plants manage all of it. Now here's what goes against most gardeners' instincts. Plant corn in blocks, not rows. Corn is wind-pollinated. A single long row produces poor kernel fill because the pollen blows sideways past the silks. A block of at least 4 rows gives the pollen a far higher chance of landing on nearby silks. Better pollination, fuller ears, more food. The 3 Sisters system was the agricultural foundation of dozens of indigenous nations, including the Haudenosaunee, Cherokee, Anishinaabe, and Pueblo peoples, feeding millions of people across North America for thousands of years. When European settlers arrived in New England, 3 Sisters gardens were producing more food per acre than European farming methods of the same period. The system wasn't primitive, it was advanced, it still is. Zones 4 to 8 for sweet corn. Full sun. Rich, deeply amended soil. Plant corn when soil reaches 60 degrees. Block plant minimum 4 rows by 4 rows. Harvest corn 70 to 90 days. Beans 60 to 70 days. Squash 80 to 100 days. Best corn varieties. Honey Select, Peaches and Cream, Silver Queen. 3 crops, 1 bed, 0 bare soil, 0 weeds all season. Vegetable 10. New Zealand spinach. The last plant on this list solves the problem none of the others can. The fall weed flush. Late August and September bring a second wave of weed germinations in most American gardens. The summer crops are finishing, beds are opening up, and cool season weeds. Chickweed, hairy bittercress, annual bluegrass. Move in fast to claim the newly bare ground. Most gardeners either tolerate it or spend their last warm weekends pulling weeds instead of enjoying the garden they built. New Zealand spinach is the answer. It isn't related to true spinach at all. It's a low-growing, heat-tolerant, spreading plant in the family Isoaceae that trails along the ground in dense branching mats, covering every inch of soil it touches. One plant can spread 3 to 4 feet in every direction by midsummer. And unlike true spinach, it doesn't bolt in heat. It keeps producing leaves and expanding its ground coverage all the way through the first frost. But here's what most American gardeners don't know about New Zealand spinach and culinary use. The leaves are genuine spinach substitutes, mild, slightly succulent, used exactly like spinach in sautés, soups, and egg dishes. The flavor is clean and not bitter. You harvest the growing tips every few weeks, and the plant branches out more aggressively in response, creating more coverage while producing more food for your kitchen. Harvesting is the management technique, but here's what makes it truly special for people like us. It fills the August and September gap that every other plant on this list leaves open. When your zucchini is done, when your cucumber vines are yellowing, when those beds are opening up and the fall weeds are moving in, New Zealand spinach is still running, still covering, still producing. Now, here's what goes against most gardeners' instincts. Direct sow it earlier than feels necessary. 3 to 4 weeks before your last frost date. The seeds have a hard coat and germination is slow, taking 2 to 3 weeks even in warm soil. Soaking seeds in warm water for 24 hours before planting speeds germination significantly. Gardeners who skip this step wait so long for germination that they assume the seeds failed. New Zealand spinach was collected by Joseph Banks, the botanist, aboard Captain James Cook's first voyage to the Pacific in 1769 and brought back to England, where it was introduced to European gardens. It spread quickly through the gardening world, specifically because of its heat tolerance and its ability to produce greens, conditions that destroyed true spinach. It has been grown in American gardens since the early 1800s and remains one of the most underused vegetables in the country. Zones 9 to 11 as a perennial, annual in zones 3 to 8, full sun to part shade, average to poor, well-drained soil. Direct sow 3 to 4 weeks before last frost, trails 3 to 4 feet. Harvest growing tips continuously from early summer through frost. Days to first harvest, 55 to 70 days from seed. Every other plant on this list closes your summer weed gaps. New Zealand spinach closes the fall ones. Together, there is no season left for weeds to move into. There are 2 ways to fight weeds. The first way: clear them, pull them, mulch over them, fabric them, spray them, clear them again. You win the battle in April. By June, you're losing it. By August, you've accepted it. You spend more time managing the problem than you spend actually gardening. The beds look controlled, but they cost you every single weekend to keep them that way. The second way: stop leaving the weeds any space to grow. Fill the ground with food. Let your vegetables be the mulch. Let their leaves be the weed barrier. Let their vines be the ground cover. The garden doesn't look controlled in a catalog way. It looks alive, dense, full. And while it's doing that, it's feeding you. Every vegetable on today's list belongs to the second way, not because they're easier to grow, because they're designed to dominate the ground they're planted in. You're not fighting the garden's wild tendency to fill empty space. You're feeding it exactly the plants that fill that space with food instead of weeds. That is what Easy Harvest Gardens is built on. Not perfect rows, not catalog gardens. Real food from real ground for real people who have real lives and want their weekends back. Summer is still here. The ground is still warm. Every one of these plants can go in right now and start closing your weed gaps before August. Pick one, just one. Go to your local nursery or order seeds online this week. Give it the ground you've been fighting weeds in all year and watch what happens. If this video gave you something real to work with, subscribe to Easy Harvest Gardens right now. Every week on this channel, we show you exactly how to grow more food with less frustration on whatever ground you have. No fluff, no filler, just what actually works. Your garden doesn't need more work. It needs smarter plants.